This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Shifting a little money here, a little there, and hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can be a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll help you find options within your budget. Try it today at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Coming up, a story about the fairy folk.
An Iranian immigrant searches for home.
Plus our distraction of the week. I'm Mel.
I'm Dave. This is the Library of Lost Time.
I just moved a book to the top of my TBR based on a recommendation from one of our supporters on Patreon. Hey, Amanda. Thank you for the book email.
What's the book?
Emily Wilde's Encyclopaedia of Faeries by Heather Fawcett. This is what she wrote to me. I just read a book that made me think of you. The voice felt similar to Veronica Speedwell because it's told in first person, and Emily is very smart, but their characters aren't too similar. I thought that was a solid sales pitch.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Veronica Speedwell.
Yep.
And what could possibly be wrong with an Encyclopedia of Faeries?
Yeah.
So I went poking around, and this is what I learned. Amanda is not the only reader who loved this book. It has 4.5 stars on Goodreads after more than 54,000 reviews.
Wow.
Yeah.
Some people have read this.
It's the first book in a fantasy series written for adults, not an adult fantasy series, which always makes me think of something else.
That would be an entirely different podcast.
Exactly.
Yep.
Fantasy series for adults.
Yep.
And it features a Cambridge professor named Emily Wilde. She's described as A, curmudgeonly, and B, the foremost expert on the study of fairies. According to the flap copy, she is, quote, not good at people. She could never make small talk at a party, and she prefers the company of her books, her dog, and the fair folk.
That sounds reasonable to me.
I know, I love her already.
Yeah.
This is the story of her excursion to Scandinavia to formally document the existence of fairies.
So she's setting out to write an encyclopedia.
Yes. But when she arrives in the village, she is not given a warm welcome. And she has to deal with her professional rival, Wendell Bamblebee. Not only is Wendell annoyingly handsome and charming, he has secrets.
Rivals in the fairy trade. Who knew?
So all of that sold me on this premise.
Yeah.
Then I started reading it, and it got even better because the story is told in the form of Emily's journal.
So leaning epistolary, but journals.
Yes.
Okay.
In other good news, the second book in the series was released last week. That one's called Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands. I feel like back-to-back books about fairy adventures are just what this winter needs. They're best read in order, so start with Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Faeries by Heather Fawcett.
My book is Martyr, with an exclamation point, like it's a musical, from Kaveh Akbar. This premise will sound like a lot, and it probably is. Martyr centers on a character named Cyrus Shams. Cyrus is a 20-something poet. He's living in Indiana. He's the son of Iranian immigrants. When he was young, he lost his mother when her plane was accidentally shot down over Tehran by the U.S. Navy.
That's bad.
Yeah. And now his father has recently passed away. Cyrus is newly an orphan, rootless, and having a bit of an existential crisis about it. And then he learns about an artist who is herself terminally ill and living out her final days in public at a modern art museum in New York City. And Cyrus decides to go visit her.
That sounds dark and heavy.
I think the thing that keeps us from that is the sense of humor. And I think there's a big dash of beautiful writing. The author is known for his poetry. One of the things that got my interest about this book is the author is, like his character, a first-generation Iranian immigrant living in the Midwest. And I'm curious to hear that angle of life. The author, Lauren Groff, who wrote The Vaster Wilds, very popular last year, said of this book, "This is the best novel you'll ever read about the joy of language addiction, displacement, martyrdom, belonging, and homesickness.
That's a good sell.
Yeah. It just came out this week. It's Martyr from Kaveh Akbar.
If you wanted to do a pair read to really get a sense of that immigrant experience, Everything Sad is Untrue by Daniel Nayeri is also about a young boy who relocates to the Midwest from Iran. And I talked about that in our Iran episode. I'll put all of that in the show notes.
And now our distraction of the week.
January can be a tough month for me.
Yeah.
The sparkly lights and jolly songs and Christmas cookies are all gone.
Yep.
It's cold and gray, and there are no good holidays for months.
It's true. For us, the next break is kind of my birthday, and that's middle of March.
Mm-hmm. So I'm consciously collecting little things that make me happy.
Yeah.
I do yoga with Adriene every morning. I put an extra sugar cube in my tea. And I recently discovered a live stream camera that is bringing me a lot of joy. It's called Namibia Cam. It's pointed 24/7 at a watering hole in the Namib Desert in Namibia.
We've watched this.
We have.
It's very pleasant.
Before I go too much further, let's get oriented.
Okay.
Everyone, picture Africa in your imagination. Namibia is on the west coast.
Yep.
That's the Atlantic side.
Yeah.
On the northern border of South Africa.
So way down south on the coast.
Yes. I need to tell you some amazing facts about the Namib Desert.
Okay.
The name comes from the Nama language, and it means vast place, or there is nothing, or place of no people.
Wow.
Yeah, and that is no joke. The desert is about 31,000 square miles, or 81,000 square meters. For context, that's about the size of the U.S. state of Maine. And it's almost completely uninhabited by humans, except for a few small settlements of indigenous people.
So the whole desert is the size of Maine.
Yes.
And then Namibia itself is...
About the size of Texas.
Okay.
Fact number 2. The Namib is considered the oldest desert in the world. It's been arid for between 55 million and 80 million years.
Wow. Wow.
For comparison, the Sahara is only 12,000 years old.
New kid on the block.
Yeah.
That's amazing to think about.
Isn't it?
So if you were standing in the middle of the desert, it would not have changed for the last, 55 million years?
55 million to 80 million. They're not quite sure.
Even though the continents themselves have shifted in that time.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Finally, you may have heard of the Skeleton Coast. That's where Namibia's reddish sand dunes meet the Atlantic Ocean. There's a constant heavy surf there and blinding fog, which means there are also the broken bones of about 500 ships scattered along the coastline, including centuries-old wooden galleons and more modern steel-hulled ships.
All of this sounds very intimidating.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sailors who survived the wrecks were often done in by the endless surrounding desert.
Of course.
Yeah.
Namibia sounds very dramatic.
Right? But the reason I'm talking about it today is because it's also sometimes very cute. A few decades ago, around 1990, a group of businessmen bought a bunch of property and created the Gondwana Namib Park. They knocked down fences and set up a huge conservation area, and animals were gradually reintroduced, so now they roam wild but are monitored by gamekeepers and rangers.
So that's a nice little conservation effort they've got going there.
Yeah, and there's awesome ecotourism there. I'll put links to all of that in the show notes. In 2006, they built a water hole in an open plain for the animals that live nearby, and they pointed a camera at it so that we can watch the animals any time of day or night.
Yeah, we've gotten in the habit of checking in on the watering hole around dinner time, right before Jeopardy. We'll take a look and see what's going on.
Sometimes I put it on while I'm working, too, just to see who's hanging out at the watering hole.
Yeah, we had lunch with ostriches today.
We did. There are lots of gemsboks. Those are brown and black gazelles that have 2 very long, straight, pointy horns on their heads. It's kind of like if a unicorn had 2 horns.
Yeah.
That's kind of what the gemsboks look like. There are also groups of springboks. They're a little bit smaller, and their horns curve toward each other so they almost make a heart shape on their head. There are lots of kind of antelope-y, deer-like creatures at the watering hole.
Yeah, there are so many antelopes that those kind of feel like, well, of course they're here.
I know. We're so blasé. We've gotten bored with the box now. As you said, we've seen ostriches.
Yep.
But until this webcam, I don't think I'd ever seen them drink.
Right.
And it's very amusing and kind of made me go, well, of course that's how they have to drink.
Yeah, so they crane their neck all the way down to the water.
And they kind of stab their beaks to scoop the water up.
Yeah.
It's kind of violent,
Yeah.
the way they get the water into their mouth.
Yep. And then they raise their head up, and I can imagine the water shoots down their neck once they've got their heads up.
Yeah, gravity pulls it down their long throat.
Yeah.
And then they just do that over and over and over.
Yeah. It seems very inefficient.
But also kind of makes sense, right? They have those long necks.
Yeah.
We've also seen jackals,
Yeah.
which I originally thought were foxes.
They're bigger.
They're bigger. But there are also Cape foxes, which we've seen,
Yeah.
which are small and cute.
Yeah.
We also saw a herd of zebras.
Yeah, we did.
And one day, an excellent warthog stopped by to roll around in the mud. And the Gems box seemed really annoyed by that.
Yeah, they seem very put off by the warthog.
Oh, we also saw a giraffe.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Very majestic.
Very majestic, and also it just put me in the mind of what it would be like to see one of those in the wild. And it feels like it would be just mind-blowing.
Like a little intimidating.
Yeah.
He had a lot of swagger.
But that, they're so tall and kind of odd-looking. And
Yeah, the Springboks did not want to mess with him.
No. Also, at night we see rabbits.
Cape hares.
Yeah.
They only come out at night, though.
Of course, because they're rabbits.
According to my research, there are 2 feral horses that live in that part of the desert. We haven't seen them yet. And I'm still hoping to see a cheetah or a leopard or a honey badger, which are reported to live there.
I'm a little worried about being traumatized by the sudden appearance of a cheetah, but it could happen.
I've wondered many times out loud, where do the animals sleep? Because in the shot that you can see with the camera, it's just reddish brown dirt and maybe a scrubby bush here or there.
Yeah.
On the FAQ, I learned that there's grass, trees, and bushes about a half mile from the watering hole.
Oh.
So I can rest easy,
Okay.
knowing they have somewhere to take a safe nap.
Yeah.
Visit strongsenseofplace.com/library for more on the books we talked about today and more on Namibia and the delightful watering hole camera.
Thanks for joining us in the Library of Lost Time. Remember to visit your local library and your independent bookstore to lose some time yourself.
Stay curious. We'll talk to you soon.